What do nuclear deterrence, sexual innuendos and financial crashes have in common? According to Enlightenment defender and cognitive scientist Steven Pinker, they all reflect the importance of a major psychological phenomenon, common knowledge. And in Pinker's brilliant new book, he explains why common knowledge is central to human life and how it can help us understand cancel culture, authoritarianism and the politicisation of science. And I'm delighted to say that Steven Pinker joined me now. Thank you very much indeed, Professor.
Hello.
Hello. Can you start by explaining what common knowledge is?
Yes, in the sense that I discuss in the book, it refers to the state where I know something, you know something, I know that you know it, you know that I know it, I know that you know that I know it, and so on ad infinitum. So it differs a bit from the conventional usage, which just refers to something that everyone knows. Here, everyone has to know that everyone knows.
Can I use this with reference to the interview that I did yesterday with my brother? My brother's a professor at City University. He's president of the university, and there's a campaign at the moment going on against one of their professors who was in the Israeli Defense Forces in the 1980s. We were having a discussion about how the university was standing up for the free speech of its staff, and I'd begun to wonder as I went home, reading your book on the tube, whether I'd made a big mistake, because the protest against this professor is really just a coordination exercise, isn't it? And maybe I'd aided it by talking about it.
Oh, yes. Protests are coordination exercises. They're designed to make private knowledge common knowledge. So in a repressive regime, everyone may know that they despise the government. But because criticism of the government is punished, people might keep their opinions to themselves, with the result that they really don't know what their fellow citizens think. Each one might think that they're the only ones that are disgruntled, and so they can't fear standing up to. They fear standing up to oppose the regime because they can be picked off one at a time. If everyone were to protest at once, no government has the firepower to intimidate all its citizens at once. In a public protest, people can see other people there, and they know that the people there see other people there, and that can give them the strength and numbers to oppose the regime, sometimes by literally storming the palace, or sometimes just bringing the machinery of the state to a halt through work stoppages. But the crucial thing is that they're coordinated. They can only be coordinated if everyone knows that they hate the regime.
I suppose that social media is making people is increasing the stock of common knowledge. We're all much more aware of what other people like us, in particular like us, know, and we also know that other people know it, and so on, as you put it, and that makes people have more common knowledge. It's not making us happier, though. Maybe we would be better with less common knowledge.
Right. Well, social media are making us more connected within certain circles. That is, those who are receiving the same texts and feeds that we are. It reduces the pool of, or shrinks the largest pool of common knowledge, namely the whole country, which may have been accessible in a day in which, say, in the United States, there were 3 networks, or in Britain, everyone was listening to the BBC. It probably doesn't make us as happy, because when everything is public, it means that your reputation is on the line for anything you say or do. It means that since social media allow us to generate common knowledge, not just receive it like in the old days. It means that attacks on people's reputation can be common knowledge, which means that it's all the more painful for people on the receiving end of the attack. It may have something to do with the fact that in certain demographics, especially young people whose lives increasingly are online, that there's that much more social competition, opportunities for gossip and ostracism and demeaning comments and so on.
So I suppose that social media, I mean, it's been associated particularly recently with a sort of upsurge in a lot of racist thought, people defending their own ethnicity, whether it's a minority ethnicity or a majority ethnicity in their particular country, and attacking others for it. And I guess this might be a feature of common knowledge, because before people used social media, they didn't realise that other people shared the same attitude as them, and now they're discovering that there are quite a lot of people who do. Increases their feelings. If that's correct, we can't get this back in the bottle, can we? I mean, not at least without switching off the internet, which we're not going to do.
No, an unintended advantage of the old days of a small number of media channels is that the people responsible for them had to worry about keeping the entire nation on board, and so you got the gatekeepers applying certain standards of decency and fact checking. Now, with fragmentation into many different pools within which there's common knowledge, less so across the pools. You don't have a centralized gatekeepers trying to maintain minimal standards of civility and accuracy. So it's a dubious blessing of increased access, of greater democratization. We've come to realize that the opinions of an awful lot of people, perhaps we are better off not hearing.
On the other hand, I suppose we've had this sort of wave of cancel culture where people are using social media as a sort of coordination mechanism. They spot the people who are like them. They adopt the same positions as other people without necessarily thinking of those positions particularly deeply, but they can see that other people like them hold it and they want to be part of a group. It's a coalition organizer, as you put it in your book. And then there's a wave after that in which cancel culture has become harder, because actually one of the things people have begun to think is, well, there are a lot of people who agree with my view. So what began as a view for which you'd be cancelled then became a view which actually was propagated on the internet. And it's hard to know whether we were better off, which of those two things we were better off. But you've always lent on believing that free speech was more important than any of the poor consequences of that speech.
Oh, yes, in general, certainly when it comes to government suppression of speech, because if government suppresses speech, they can suppress criticism of themselves, and then bad policies can get locked in. So in general, certainly when it comes to repression of speech, that is almost always a bad thing. There still can be criticism of speech. That is, if someone says something for which they have no evidence that's having harmful effects, other people can point that out. But those other people don't have the army and police force behind them.
Do you find that you're pinned as a traditional Enlightenment liberal between cancel culture, which goes against the ethics of free speech, and then some of the things that people then end up normalizing through things like social media, where they're coalition building and the common knowledge that people are like them, prejudiced against other people? You end up getting pinned between those two things in a way that maybe didn't exist before there was such a lot of common knowledge.
Indeed, yes. And so one has to differentiate between government control of speech, which I think is should not be permitted except in certain circumscribed circumstances, incitement to imminent violence, child pornography, extortion, sexual harassment, and the other carve-outs for free speech. On the other hand, in a marketplace of ideas, when someone says something that is wrong, that is fatuous, then they're an open target for criticism. The point of free speech is that speech can counteract speech. And we probably need more of that now, because there's an awful lot of garbage being said, and that's a necessary consequence of opening the channels by which speech can be propagated, namely social media.
Well, your book certainly contributes to an understanding of the issue of common knowledge. There's no question about that. But beyond that, which is obviously a perfectly dignified aim for any academic to aid understanding, do you have any hopes for it politically in terms of how it might affect public debate or public regulation going forward?
I wouldn't say that's an aspiration for the book. I try to. It's not a book on policy. It's really a book on I hope, insight. People will understand what's happening in their own lives when it comes to benign hypocrisy and politeness and euphemism and innuendo, what maintains our social relationships and what threatens them. But then also on the national stage, what is the function of free speech? Why is it considered to be worth protecting in democracies, and why do autocracies fear free speech? In financial realms, what's the cause of bubbles and crashes and speculation and irrational exuberance and bank runs and hoarding? All of these are phenomena that depend on what people know about what people know.
Well, Stephen Pinker, I hope that soon, when everyone knows that everyone knows is known by everyone to be a very good and important book. Thank you for writing it, and thank you for joining me.